Well, hello everyone. Today we're going to be focusing on a topic that seems really relevant to me as of late in the current political climate. I've seen it slowly, encroaching more and more upon the gaming community, as it were, as it gets more and more prevalent in, contemporary politics. You've already read the title, Mama. We are talking about women and the LGBTQ community in gaming. I was recently on YouTube when I found this crazy ass video from this guy who literally just hates women and gay people. So, let me show you a clip.
Now, for the rest of you, straight dudes, giga chads, can we talk? Why are video games gay now? If you look at the front page of Xbox Game Pass right now, you will see what I mean. Magical delicacy. Explore an unfamiliar town and deliver tasty treats to the townsfolk. Learn new ways to traverse, discover secrets, and experience a unique witchy world. The LGBTQ crowd are satanic devil worshippers, so of course they have witches in their game. No Giga Chad would actually play this slop. We would say, "Get behind me, Satan," while we leave to go play Kingdom Come Deliverance and old school Rainbow Six games.
So, beside the obvious, really weird take about him being like, oh my god, Giga Chads, we're so alpha, he's actually just literally hating on a video game for being fun, which is a weird take. But I really want to hone in on him, being anti-LGBTQ or whatever for some weird reason, in just gaming in general, and how he's, referring to this, alpha community, that he's, for some reason claiming is, anti-gay. And also, the weird subtweet about gay people being satanic was fun. Anyway, the first thing I wanted to really talk about is the demographics of gaming and how that really looks like today. A lot of people are really used to the tropes of video games just being a boys thing that only, male identifying individuals associate themselves with. But the fact of the matter is that it's really an incredibly outdated trope, especially as the term gamer has really developed and evolved over time. I mean, nowadays, a gamer can be someone who literally just plays Clash of Clans on their phone, or it could be a professional esports player on the world stages for League of Legends championship. Both of them are equally worthy of the title gamer. But when we talk about this casual versus competitive dichotomy, we start to see a real breakdown of female representation in gaming. According to this Forbes article, 61% of competitive esports players are actually male, while only 30% are female, leaving about 9% for people who didn't choose to respond or declined to respond or responded as non-binary. But this large gap in female representation in competitive esports is huge when you compare it to the gender dichotomy of casual gaming, where it's only about a 53% male, 47% female split, according to the Entertainment Software Association, which is this nonprofit organization that makes an annual report on gaming, and it's really cool. You should check it out. But to hear more about this, gender demographic between male and females or male and female identifying individuals, especially as it comes to esports and gaming in general. I actually asked for an interview with the current Roosevelt University director of esports, John Lawal, in order to talk about the demographics of our current roster of players and how they identify as it comes down to females and LGBTQ individuals. So I'll go ahead and drop that interview here. Alrighty, well, thank you so much. This is John Lawal. This is the current Roosevelt University Director of Esports. Thank you so much for joining me today, John. I had just a few questions that I wanted to talk to you about as it refers to esports, demographics. Mostly we're going to be talking about LGBTQ and women's representation within esports, especially since you're a collegiate director. I wanted to know a lot about how you see these demographics. So currently, what's the percentage of the Roosevelt University's Lakers esports program that's openly LGBTQ?
Openly, to my knowledge, is around 20%. I would say this number is likely higher than that, though. But to my knowledge, I know of 20% of the program to be LGBTQ plus.
Right. So then what percentage of the Lakers program is female or female identifying?
Currently around 1 to 2%. We only, I believe, have 1 or 2 female members at the moment, and our program is around 35 people.
Okay, and so then when you're recruiting new or prospective members to the program, and you're working with that, like roughly how many recruits do you deal with or interact with in general on like a semester basis?
On a semester basis, I probably talk to 50 to 60 students every semester.
Okay, and then what percentage of those prospective students or prospective recruits are female identifying?
Female, around 2%.
And then how many of those do you know? Obviously, it's a little bit of a less intimate relationship since you're just trialing them. But how much of them do you know openly as LGBTQ?
From what I know, would be anywhere from 3 to 10%. That's obviously on the low end, just because a lot of people don't, put their identifiers everywhere. I basically only know them through if they take a tour of the school, what their social media accounts have, or what they've told me in meetings. So I would say anywhere from 3 to 10%, but that's obviously higher, of course.
I see. And so then when you're working as the director with the students that you do have you noticed any particular like biases or trends among or against LGBTQ or female players within the Roosevelt University's Lakers program or beyond, maybe just in gaming in general?
In the program specifically, I think we're lucky to have a pretty open and inclusive program. So I think within the program, we kind of have the opposite, where there may have been a lot of people that weren't exposed to LGBTQ plus people before they came to the program, and they may have had perceptions of them based on online interactions or things in the past. But when they get into the program and they meet everybody in the program, we actually expose them to things that they aren't used to, being around people that they may have only come from an area where they only dealt with, people that weren't in a marginalized group. So I think we have a really good program with a lot of bright people that I've never had any issues with anybody having any biases towards LGBTQ plus people within the program, and mostly within the school as a whole. But I do know that beyond the program itself, there are definitely biases towards LGBTQ plus people in gaming and just in esports. I think that anybody who's ever played any kind of online video game that has a text or voice chat feature has experienced something of this nature, whether it's homophobia, transphobia, or just misogyny, something of that nature. I think that it's uh, relatively, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's common. I guess I would say it's relatively uh common, or it's common to experience it at least once in your time in a gaming scenario, but um I don't think that it's as prevalent as other competition based hobbies like traditional sports. I would say gaming and esports are much more inclusive than things like traditional sports.
I see. And so then when you're acting as the director of the Roosevelt Lakers program, do you have any procedures or policies or just general efforts to try to include more LGBTQ or female players into the program, especially like while you're recruiting? Or if you do, like what are they in particular?
Yeah, so I would say the first one would be our Lakers Esports student guidelines that we present to everybody at the beginning of every year. That's basically just a document that has obviously all of the rules and regulations that we follow in the program, along with a bunch of things that have to do with the athletics department that we fall under, and just some codes that we live by. This document is really powerful because every student has to acknowledge it and sign it before they can get program benefits, like their scholarship or any of the merchandise they get, or competing in any seasons, or most importantly, representing the school as a competitor. And within that brand guidelines document, we have very strict anti-discrimination policies that are all operating on a zero tolerance basis. That explicitly outline that you're not allowed to discriminate against anybody in a marginalized group. Basically, for any reason whatsoever. Along with that, we recruit openly without any barriers of entry. We do recruit in a co-ed style, which means that we don't necessarily look at let's say, our League of Legends team as a male-only team. If a female competitor wanted to come to us and try out for the team, there is absolutely nothing barring them from trialing with us. We basically take people for trials based on obviously the regular recruitment standards, like if it's financially viable for you, where you're located, and then in terms of esports specifically, it's just communication, teamwork, and your skill in the game. So we don't recruit with any barriers. Um, And I think that we pride ourselves on being a pretty welcoming program with a healthy amount of LGBTQ plus members. I think in esports as a whole, our program likely has a higher percentage of LGBTQ plus members than the industry at the moment. So I would say we are more inclusive than most programs in that, right? Especially within a collegiate landscape, where students may be predominantly white and a lot of people in competition may be male.
I see. And so then speaking on that in general demographic trends among the gaming industry, especially as it comes to not only collegiate esports, but also professional esports. Earlier in this video essay, I talked a lot about a Forbes article where about 60% of competitive esports in the top tiers among all competitive sport games are actually male, but only 30% are female. There's like this very wide discrepancy in competitive gaming, but when it comes to casual gaming, that gap is almost non-existent. It's much smaller. Um, do you have any personal experience or observations or anecdotes about that discrepancy as it comes to esports in your life or for the program?
Yeah, I think that gaming as a whole, the industry of gaming, especially casual gaming, has come a long way in the last 10 or so years to make more games catered towards groups that aren't men. Gaming's history has been a lot of shooter games, a lot of violent games, a lot of games that are catered towards men. Obviously, that's obvious with billions and billions of dollars every year going into things like male sports games like Madden, NBA, MLB The Show, things like that, along with male-focused games like Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, stuff like that, all feature men. It's a lot of blood, it's a lot of guns, things like that that usually men would be a fan of. And I think that in the last 10, 15 years, games that are marketed towards women in the gaming space have become much more prevalent, have had a lot more investment gone into them. And I think that from the casual games standpoint, the statistics have definitely gotten a little bit closer to each other a little bit, where it's not 50-50 yet, and I may not even think that it's going to be 50-50 at any point, but I think that it's much closer than it used to be. But in terms of esports, where competition comes in, I think unfortunately a lot of those male-focused games, things like Halo, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Rocket League is obviously just a soccer-based game. Um, I think that a lot of those games were male focused before they became esports. And then the people that wanted to compete and be the best in those games ended up being men. So now we have a bunch of esports or competitive video games that in the beginning were just games focused towards men. Um, I think that this is simply a time thing. I don't think that this is like any commentary on society or who likes to compete in what. I think that there's a healthy group of women in the world that want to compete in something. I think it's just a matter of time before a game in and of itself is catered towards women, and that game develops a competitive fan base, which could end up, closening those statistics a little bit more.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today about these demographic trends in esports. I really appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
So, now that we've discussed LGBTQ and women's representation as players in competitive esports, another thing is we can talk about the highly contested point of representation of main characters and protagonists in games, especially as it comes to like single player games where you're playing as one character. A lot of the times when you're playing a multiplayer game, you're playing a bunch of different characters at one time. So for many of these like single player games, the only time that we see, like we as the players can see ourselves reflected in a game is in the characters that it uses to tell its story and the characters that we're actually playing as the whole time that we're online. So for this reason, it's so important to have a wide breadth of representation so that as many players as possible can see themselves in the game. But unfortunately, in this 2019 article by Wired, it actually appears that only 5% of games released in 2019 actually had female protagonists at all, which didn't really come as a shock to anyone because, I mean, we're all playing these games. We see the lack of, female representation. It's not really a surprise. But what's more surprising, or when you contrast it against this, is the fact that Wired also that same year told us that 41% of gamers are, female representing or female identifying, sorry. And so that was the real shocker as a disparity. I mean, like Loki, if we're thinking about protagonists with, very quote unquote woke or progressive protagonist. Like we can think about like a game like Life is Strange, which is literally a game about a closeted lesbo with time control powers. Okay, so like when Steam gave that a 10 out of 10, like everyone reviewed it as a 10 out of 10. It was insane because that's like ahead of its time for me, at least in my mind. But on the topic of playing as a time controlling lesbian, there's this other strange phenomenon of LGBTQ and female gamers selecting characters. There's this trend for, a lot of LGBTQ and female players playing as support roles. So a lot of this is marketing. Like if we're being totally honest, like the game that we're watching right here, Overwatch, has this character that we're watching, Mercy, who is literally this cute blonde nurse with angel wings and magical healing powers, and she's cute. All her skins are pink, festive, all gorgeous. But like Genji is literally this cyborg ninja teen boy with a katana, and he has all these edgy skins that make him look like a murderer, and like everyone like plays him because like they think that they're cool. You know what I mean? So like, a lot of people say that it's a marketing strategy, but a lot of other people actually argue that it's way more of like a manifestation of social norms in a video game setting. So a lot of people are saying like this is like, boys are taught to be aggressive when you're younger. Like, boys will be boys, they'll fight, they'll get roughed up, while girls are taught to be nurturing and caring. So like these trends are just manifesting on the role selection and the character selection screen, as opposed to just being something that we're seeing as a marketing ploy. One weird thing about this, though, is that a lot of men, especially in the game World of Warcraft, there's a whole study that was done on World of Warcraft players. It had a sample size of about 252 players, where a lot of straight men, like heterosexual men, actually wanted to play as female characters, and this trend did not go in the reverse. A lot of women did not want to play as male characters. One really important thing to think about this, though, is that World of Warcraft is actually played as a third-person point of view game. So, like, girl, let me just show you. Like, when you're playing as a third-person game, you're seeing your character, you're seeing the quote-unquote female aesthetics. You know what I mean? So, like, you're watching that character's ass move the whole time you're walking on the map. So, I mean, like, we really know what's going on here. Next, we can get this off the screen. But what's really going on here is, like, it's almost an objectification within the game. So, it's like, not only are we seeing... I don't want to say it's a lack of female representation on the screen, but it's almost antithetical. It's going in reverse. It's an objectification of women in video games. Like literally, this girl has a tail and she's like shaking her ass. Like, can we be honest here? The other thing is that a lot of LGBTQ and like myself included individuals are actually playing and falling into these roles of, supporting roles that a lot of female players are actually falling into as well. There's no real explanation for this other than the fact that, there's a feminine appeal here. There's a idea of this is what a man who harbors, more feminine traits should fall into. And of course there's outliers. My roommate is a gay man who plays, damage dealing. He plays Genji. But like me personally, I'm a gay man who plays Mercy. So like there are so many people that fall into that same category. It's also a trend of its own for gay people, LGBTQ people in general, to be playing these supporting roles across any game, whether it be Overwatch, League of Legends, Valorant, whatever it be. But overall, it's just important to really reflect on how LGBTQ and female representation appears across gaming, whether that be as protagonists, as main characters in like single player games, whether that comes down to esports, competitive play. We heard John Lawal talk about how there's a very big discrepancy between, male and female representation in competitive esports, but not so much with casual gaming. And we also heard that Forbes article. And then a lot of this weird stuff with role selection and appearance and aesthetics in game. And then that weird clip at the beginning. I don't know what's up with that man. He's tripping. I don't know what's up with this alpha male moment. But, if you have any thoughts, feel free to comment. I know that this is for, a class, but don't tell anyone. You can feel free to comment, guys. So thank you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I'll see ya.